Hi, I'm Dr. Brian Thornburg, and I was asked a very general question, which are easy for me to answer. So I apologize if I don't get back to you when you ask me a very specific question about your child. I cannot answer those kind of questions. That wouldn't be professional, and I really wouldn't feel right about doing that anyways. But I can do these general questions like this one. A mom asked about the primary vaccine series, the ones given at 2, 4, 6 months old, as well as 12 to 15 months old. And she wanted to know if it was better to do the Pentacle and Prevnar or do the individual vaccines, which are DTaP, polio, Hib, and Prevnar. So I was going to go through this and compare and contrast these two different possible paths of taking vaccines. And there are some differences, so let's get into this. Obviously, the number of sticks are going to be fewer if you do a combination stick at each visit. You will have 2 sticks if you do the Prevnar and Pentacle, and there'll be 4 sticks per visit if you do the individual vaccines. There's a decreased number of visits needed to accomplish the Prevnar, be a real significant difference in the number of visits. I want to get into the ingredients in these 2 different pathways that you can do for vaccines, the ingredients beyond the antigen that we're trying to vaccinate against. In Pentacle, the combination shot, there's aluminum phosphate, formaldehyde, polysorbate 80, glutaraldehyde, and 2-phenoxyethanol. Sorry, that's a long word. I haven't taken organic chemistry for a while. Prevnar 13 contains aluminum phosphate, polysorbate 80, and a succinate buffer. DTaP vaccine, specifically the Dapticel, has aluminum phosphate, formaldehyde, polysorbate 80, and the glutaraldehyde. Polio vaccine, the iPol, specifically contains 2-phenoxyethanol, formaldehyde, neomycin, streptomycin, and polymyxin B. So we have a lot of antibiotics in that one. The Hib vaccine contains formaldehyde and sucrose. There's no aluminum in that. There was no aluminum in the polio vaccine. And then there's one distinction that I need to make on the Hib vaccines. If PedVax Hib is given, this contains aluminum sulfate. If the ACT Hib is given, this does not contain aluminum sulfate. So this is going to change the amount of aluminum sulfate that is injected at each of the visits, depending if your pediatrician's office has the PedVax Hib or the ACT Hib. How much aluminum is in the Pentacle Prevnar combination? And that's 455 micrograms. If you use individual vaccines and use the ACT Hib, it contains the same amount of aluminum sulfate at 455 micrograms. The difference comes is if you do the individual vaccines and use the PedVax Hib, which then contains an additional 225 milligrams. So that takes up the total microgram count to 680 micrograms if the individual vaccines contain the PedVax Hib and not the ACT Hib. These are some things to consider if you are going to follow the childhood immunization schedule. Try to find the ACT Hib. I appreciate you watching. Thank you very much.